that they were willing to do that. And suddenly now we have this dramatically increasing exposure to and adherence to the Austrian School of Economics. Now, I don't assume everyone in the room knows what Austrian economics is. Most of you do, but I'll just say very quickly. We're talking about a tradition of economic thought that's well over a century old, that can boast a Nobel Prize winner, F.A. Hayek. When I pointed this out on Glenn Beck, I said, by the way, you know, another thing people should be exposed to Hayek. The fact is he did win the Nobel Prize, and Beck did correctly say, yeah, but they're handing those out like candy. Yeah, okay, I guess he's right there. But the difference is that with Hayek, it's one thing to win the Nobel Prize for saying exactly what the Nobel Committee wants to hear. Then you win the prize. Well, big deal. Right? I mean, I could win the Hillary Clinton Appreciation Society Prize pretty easily by writing some crummy essay about how wonderful she is. But if I wrote an essay saying, actually, she's a bum who's done this, this, and this, and then I still win, that's really something. Then I've really done something. And Hayek, likewise, you know, his work that they're praising from the 1930s is saying that when you try to stabilize the economy with your crummy monetary policy, you actually destabilize it. That's not what these people want to hear, yet he wins the prize for that. I'm wearing my Ludwig von Mises Institute tie here. This is the cool new blue version with LVMI all over it. And Ludwig von Mises, many of you know that name. I mean, here's a guy who spends his first part of his adult life in Europe, in Austria, and Switzerland, and then finally flees Europe in 1940, obviously because political conditions were not really conducive to the continued peaceful existence of a free market Jewish intellectual. So he got the heck out of there. Meanwhile, his papers and library were confiscated and only rediscovered about a half century later. But they were confiscated by the Nazis. He came to the U.S., can't get a paid university position, takes an unpaid position at New York University. His salary is paid by a group of businessmen who understand the significance of his work. He basically goes unrecognized during his lifetime, even though he deserves to win the Nobel Prize 8 times over. I mean, seriously, you could look through his contributions, you could find his business cycle theory. Well, Hayek wins the Nobel Prize for that, but he was building on Mises. His socialist calculation critique, all these things, he could have easily won the Nobel Prize for. He didn't. He went unrecognized, and yet by the end of his life, what is he rebuking himself for? Is he rebuking himself for being too uncompromising, to sticking to his principles too much, and that maybe if he had watered it down, he could have had a bigger audience? No. In his so-called notes and recollections, he criticizes himself for being too soft, for actually not being consistent enough. And then he dies in 1973. Hayek wins the Nobel Prize the next year. There's a mini revival of the Austrian school. Well, now today, the Austrians are enjoying a tremendous revival, because a lot of people feel like for all their fancy mathematical equations and all this, the mainstream of the profession has egg on its face, because almost none of them understood that there was a crisis coming. And about the same number have any clue what to do about it. I mean, they're all saying, okay, just throw some money into the system, that ought to fix it. Well, Bernanke just gave a speech in which it is clear he does not know what to do now. And I recommend, if you guys aren't reading LouRockwell.com every morning, that's a mistake. You've got to be reading that. Read the one this week. Go to LouRockwell.com. Read the top article by Gary North. Gary North goes through the Ben Bernanke speech and translates it into what Bernanke is really saying. It is so well done. I am telling you, it is so well done. And then you get to the end and he says, by the way, this is only half of Bernanke's speech. I'll do the next half on Monday. And you think, you know what? I don't like Ben Bernanke either, but even I feel like, you know, we're going to call this a technical knockout or something. I mean, the guy is in 1,000 pieces, neatly sliced on the floor at the end of this critique. It's incredible. This point of view, as I say, was invisible before. But thanks to the internet, it's spreading like crazy, because anybody could just go to YouTube and watch a video about it. Or the Mises Institute has got a website with so much free stuff on it, you can't believe it. You could just spend your life. You could spend your life. It would be a really sad, pathetic life. But you could sit there and just, that's it. You could say, that's it. I give up on mankind. I just want to soak in Austrian wisdom. There are hundreds of books and thousands of hours of, there are thousands of hours of audio on there. I mean, this is like more than the average Frenchman works in a year in audio on the site. It's incredible what's available. Oh, who cares? It's just a joke. I love the French. Right? I ate French fries all through that time when we weren't allowed to. Nothing about that. But this is amazing that this is happening. Now, I just came from the Institute summer program. Just a few weeks ago, I was there for a full week toward the end of my tenure as a scholar there. And we had our Mises University program. It's a week-long program where students from around the country spend a week with us, and it's an intense week of instruction. And I went to this thing in the early 90s, and it changed my whole life. I mean, I was hooked ever since. So we've got hundreds of kids, which is larger than probably the whole Austrian school 30 years ago. That's not a joke. That's serious. The whole Austrian school about 30 years ago, probably everybody knew everybody else who was in it. Everybody knew everybody else. The beauty of it now is you meet new people all the time you never met. They've been doing this Austrian stuff for 20 years. You never even knew about them. Now you know you're getting somewhere. I mean, you've got to be committed if you're going to be a college kid and you're going to spend a week in 110-degree Auburn learning economics. Like everyone, my friend Mark Thornton opens up the Mises University saying, you know what, all you kids in this room, you come from all over the country, different states, you come from 40 different foreign countries, nevertheless, you all still have one thing in common. And that is you have all had to answer the question, you want to go to Alabama to do what? Like, that's what everybody gets. Like, what? Why are you doing this? But they all loved it. And so it's just not going away. It's getting bigger and bigger because these kids are going to influence the profession. They're already doing it by annoying their professors who know none of this stuff. The great thing about the Austrians is they know the mainstream stuff cold because they were trained in it. But they also know the Austrian version of things. Whereas the mainstream professor knows his stuff, doesn't know any of this. I mean, none. So things are changing. Like our sorts of points of view are getting into financial publications. It is, I've never seen this sort of a thing before. And we saved a treat for these kids. On Thursday of that week, we had what's called a mystery speaker. Every year we have a mystery speaker. And nobody knows who it is until he walks out. And in previous years, we've had people who were not especially well known, but who were nevertheless good speakers, and everyone was glad to hear them. This year, it was Judge Napolitano. Now, we kept this a super secret. Like, most of the faculty didn't even know he was coming. And it was so beautiful, because all the kids were in there, they don't know who it's going to be, but I've been downplaying it all week. Oh, well, we've had this guy in the past. So, because I don't want them to all think it's going to be Ron Paul, and then if the judge comes out, they're disappointed. Like, I don't want that. So I said, no, Ron Paul is busy. He's not here. And then Lou Rockwell comes out and gives his introduction. It's brilliant, because he doesn't mention the guy's name, which everyone would have cheered then. We don't want them cheering Lou, the introducer. We want them cheering the judge. So he just gives this generic speech about this guy and how heroic he is, and he's going to be even more heroic in the future, and he's got all these contributions to make, and please help me welcome this great man. And he steps aside, and in walks the judge like this. And the crowd goes insane. Insane. But, I mean, that just solidified it for these kids. I saw it on Facebook. I saw a lot of the participants saying, best week ever. It was an economics program. Best week ever. Now, that means things are changing. Now, it's true. The Keynesians have access to the internet, too, but how does that help them? Like, they were already, well, strictly speaking, the Keynesians have been on the decline for several decades, but even still, they were still a major paradigm in economics before the internet, so how does having the internet help? I mean, okay, so now I can use the internet to spread Keynesianism, but it was already spread. Ours was at zero. And so the invention of YouTube, it cannot be understated. The average person can sit at home and compile a video of what I like to call our wise overlords. Compile a video of one of them and just clips of idiotic things this person has said over the course of his tenure. And now Ben Bernanke is a great example, because when has the guy been right about something? I'm still waiting. It's like, in a way, that's almost as good as being always right. Because, I could just sort of calibrate my own expectations based on inverting his. And so with Bernanke,